Welcome to the WRC podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and you're in the right place. Here at the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast, what you can expect is to learn, shift your thinking, and gain personal and professional growth. And if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. The conversation starts now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of introducing a remarkable individual whose journey embodies the transformative power of international education and the drive to empower others in their pursuit to academic success. Join us today as we dive into the life and work of Assan Arshad, a visionary counselor making a lasting impact in the field. But before we get into introducing our guest, I just want to remind you that you can purchase my book, The Well-Rounded Counselor: Considerations for International College Counselors. There has been so much amazing feedback on the book, and so many people are grabbing a copy in its first month of release. So make sure you grab a copy today off of Amazon, and I'll leave the link below in my show notes. Now, let's get into introducing my guest. Hailing originally from Pakistan, Assan embarked in a global educational odyssey that took him across continents and cultural landscapes. At the tender age of 6, he found himself in Jubail, Saudi Arabia. There, he attended an American high school renowned for its vibrant learning environment and collaborative approach. Graduation from high school marked a pivotal moment for Assan as he ventured onto the next chapter of his educational journey in Spain. Driven by a passion to bridge this divide, Assan, alongside a like-minded group of friends, founded Intellect, an educational consultancy dedicated to guiding students through the intricacies of the European university application process. Through his unwavering commitment and personal experiences, Assan has emerged as an advocate for international student recruitment. Guided by a vision of providing invaluable guidance to aspiring students and fostering cultural exchange, he continues to leave an indelible mark on the lives of those navigating the exhilarating path of international education. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that we present to you Ahsan Arshad, an inspirational counselor, a beacon of knowledge, and a true champion for students seeking to expand their horizons in the world of education. Ahsan, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to the WRC podcast. How are you?
Thank you very much, Katrina. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm doing great. It's a nice sunny day today in Lahore, but yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, good. I'm so thankful that you decided to join us today, Assan. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about your upbringing and your journey to becoming a counselor?
Yeah, so I was, as you mentioned, I'm originally from Pakistan. I moved to Saudi Arabia at the age of 6. I attended a couple of American high schools in Saudi Arabia before then moving on to Spain, where I attended the Universidad Carlos III de Madrid, where I was for 2 years before transferring to IE University, which is also in Madrid. And when I was at Carlos III, I realized that maybe I hadn't made the best choice for myself. I think when you're leaving high school, you don't have a clear idea of what something is going to be like across the world. So I was really excited for Europe initially. I had been to Spain prior, and I loved being in Madrid. I thought, it would be a bit like high school. And after getting there, it wasn't quite like that. I went from a very diverse environment to having, 40 plus nationalities in every high school that I had been to being the only international student in my class of 60 students in Carlos III. And that's something that was quite difficult to adjust to. And that's when I, realized that maybe it's not all sunshine in Europe as well. And there were some things that I wish I had known going into university. And it was quite similar for a lot of the friends that I had went to. So, my friend group, about 6 or 7 of us went to the United States, Canada, the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, and I had gone to Spain myself. So, we all had a very different initial experience in Europe and in the States and Canada. So that's when we thought about maybe starting a consultancy, which goes to high schools in the Middle East and talks to them about the realities of studying in Europe. Because when I first moved, my initial idea of Spain was, I'm going to be traveling on the weekends. It's going to be a very nice, relaxing time, siestas and sangria, which it wasn't the case. The educational system was so different. I had gone from a school that, really valued collaboration, teamwork, essay writing, and a big focus on soft skills. So, you have your 30% of your grade is going to be your final exam. The rest is going to be projects, essays, a lot of teamwork. And now at Carlos III, I had 2 assignments throughout the whole semester per class. It was the midterm and the final exam. And if you mess up on any of them, it was quite difficult to pass the course. But then I transferred to IE University, which has a much a similar culture to, you would say, an American high school or an international high school across the Middle East. And that's where I really found myself and really fit in. So I thought it would be, something that students could find valuable, knowing what life is like on the ground. I mean, most counselors do focus towards the UK, Canada, and the US, where most of the demand is. So I thought this could be a more hands-on experience and telling students, what the reality is like. And also, we're all very recent graduates. So, the experience that we've lived is quite recent, not, 30, 40 years ago. So I thought that would be something that students would find beneficial. And that's how Intellect started.
Wow, that's amazing. And that helps you become a little bit more relatable to those students that you're counseling. Am I right?
Exactly. So, throughout the seminars that we've done in the Middle East, that's one of the main feedback that we always get. It was a lot more relatable. Sometimes when we do these seminars, we're not always representing one specific university, and that allows us to be a bit more open about our experiences. And our seminars are a bit different to what a traditional university fair is like, and that's really been a key factor of being able to relate to students.
So, as an advocate for international student recruitment, what do you believe are the key benefits of pursuing an education abroad, particularly students coming from the Middle East?
I think compared to the Middle East, coming to a place like Europe, you're going to be putting yourself in a difficult environment. It's not going to be as comfortable as going to the US or Canada, but it is a great place to really grow yourself and challenge yourself. There's going to be a language barrier, but it's also an opportunity to have a third language under your belt. Most students that you meet in the Middle East, they already speak two languages. And this is a great chance to get a third language under your belt, like German and Spanish, which are widely spoken languages. So that's something you can always improve on. Another reason why I picked Europe myself was I knew that if I had gone to the US, I might have joined, the Pakistani society of my university and kind of not been really gone out of that shell or my own group. But Europe, that's not the case. You have to be a bit more open to getting out of your comfort zone and meeting people from other nationalities. So I think that was a great opportunity to really put myself out of my comfort zone. And the other one was travel. I think traveling is such a great experience that you can get while studying abroad in Europe. Your flights are incredibly cheap. You can you can leave on Friday afternoon and then come back on Monday morning for your class. And that's something that I think really, really improves you as a person. And it's been something that I've loved the most about being in Europe.
I think that's a phenomenal way you put it. Many people who studied abroad will always reflect on that time that they studied abroad, and that's where a lot of growth happened. So let's talk about you founding Intellect was a pivotal moment in your journey, driven by the desire to bridge the information for Middle Eastern students considering European universities. Can you share some of the more common challenges you've encountered during this process and how Intellect has addressed them?
Okay, so the main challenge that we face when talking about European universities is why are their rankings not as high as US universities or Canadian universities? What's the reason for that? And that barrier will always be there. But the main way we overcome that is by letting students know that the main reason is it's not because their quality isn't there, is because these universities have very low tuition fees. So most of their money cannot go towards public research like it can be done in the US, which is obviously something that plays a big role in boosting your rankings. Also, European universities tend to be more specialized. So you'll have one university for business, one for medicine, one for engineering, whereas in the US, you might have all of these programs in one single university. And when you don't have that size, you can't really grow your rankings like you can if you have a big university. That's one of the main challenges we faced. And then we also face the challenge of, the language barrier is always there. Am I going to be able to fit in? And, that is a very reasonable fear to have. And to overcome that, we usually talk to students about, there are so many English taught programs that you can attend now in Europe. If you're situated in a capital city like Madrid or Barcelona, there's always going to be communities, very diverse communities around you. Another challenge we faced, and the way we overcame that was, they wanted a US recognized diploma. So we said, now there's so many US universities that have campuses in Europe. So you could get a US recognized degree while being in Europe. In Madrid alone, you've got the St. Louis University of Madrid, you've got Suffolk Madrid, you've got Schiller University, you've got the American College of Rome, you've got the American University of Paris. So you've got so many opportunities to pursue an education in Europe while still having a US recognized diploma, which might not even play that much of a role while looking for a job, but it does help just comfort parents and students that, their degree will be recognized in Europe. Then there's challenges of visas and immigration. The visa process is quite difficult from country to country. for the US, for example, if you need a student visa, you kind of just have an interview, you have your acceptance letter, and you'll probably be fine. When it comes to Spain, you've got to get a police clearance certificate, you've got to get a medical exam done, you've got all your documents translated into Spanish, you've got to get all the documents legalized by the Spanish embassy. So it's just kind of talking them down step by step, explaining them that yes, it might be a challenge, but in the end, it's doable and something that the students would definitely enjoy and look back on in a positive light.
It sounds like your work at Intellect extends beyond the application process from what you just explained, where you address like legal challenges and maybe some of the paperwork or the pre-departure things that they need to do before they arrive in a new country. Can you share some more examples of these challenges and how Intellect supports students navigating them?
Okay, so I'll focus a bit on Spain because that's the country that I deal with the most.
Yeah.
So for example, for Spain, when you have to apply for your visa, you need all your documents translated. They need to be translated by someone that's been approved by the Spanish ministry. So, finding one of those, we've already got connections with them. So we help students out with that. And once you land in Spain is when the real challenge begins. So first you have to get something called an empadronamiento, and that's a town hall registration that you're living at a specific residence. But to get that, you need an official contract. So we look over the contracts for students. There's a lot of times where landlords might, want to manipulate contracts or not properly disclose information to international students because they know that international students might not know local law the best. So it might be a temporal contract, which, basically takes away any liability from the landlord. So we look over that and we make sure that their contracts are in order before they go get their empadronamiento, because this document is something that they'll need for their whole time in Spain. Then what happens is in Spain, you don't get a visa for 4 years. You get a 3-month visa. And then once you land in Spain, you have to apply for something called la tarjeta de extranjero. So for the tarjeta de extranjero, you need all your documents translated to Spanish. Once again, you need medical insurance. You need to prove that you have enough funds in your bank account. And the main challenge sometimes with this is the time span. It can take a few months, and also getting an appointment is very hard. So we ensure that all of these are taken care of for the student from our side. We get them their appointments, we get them all their documents translated, we help them get their medical insurance. Yes. And then what happens in Spain, when you get that card, it's only valid for a year. So every year you have to renew it, basically proving to the authorities that you were actually attending your classes. And once again, we help them out with this process as well. And while their documents are being renewed, if they have to leave the country, they need something called a travel authorization or regreso. And then once again, we have to help them out with that as well. So I think with the first year, once you first land, there's so much that you have to take care of that knowing that your paperwork has been taken care of is something that students find very comforting. And once we help them out in the first year, they understand the process very well and they can do it by themselves going forward in their second, third, and fourth years. Another thing that we do is before you even land, we make sure that your travel card has been taken care of. So as soon as you land in Madrid or Barcelona, you've already got your transportation card. So from day one, you have nothing to worry about, no waiting in lines or appointments to get those cards as well. So these are some of the main things that we help students out with.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I don't even know all of that information. I've been helping kids apply to European universities for a long time. So you really guys at Intellect, you guys really dive deep and make sure that the student is well taken care of and that all their fears and doubts are kind of removed and that they can transition very smoothly. Am I right?
Yeah, I think that was the main challenges that I faced myself. So, I knew that if I could take care of this part for the students that we're bringing along, it would really help them feel at ease and be able to, then actually go out and travel and enjoy the European life that they were envisioning.
That's amazing. So as an advocate for international student recruitment, what do you believe are the key benefits of pursuing an education abroad, particularly students from the Middle East? And how do you help these students navigate the cultural and academic transitions that they face, which we kind of already talked about, but let's talk more in the terms of like them coming from this part of the world in the Middle East to going to Europe, and how do they transition between the two?
So I think the fact that a lot of the counselors that we have at Intellect have studied abroad in different educational backgrounds, and that allows us to kind of cater to the student's need. So for example, if we're talking to a student that's maybe from a Pakistani or Indian high school background, we could refer them to universities that are public that have a similar educational system to those schools. But if we're talking to someone from an international American school or a British school, we could refer them to a more private university where they'll have a similar experience that they had in high school. So that allows us to kind of bridge that cultural gap and also attend to cater to the students' needs. And then the main issue when it comes to cultural barriers is that will always exist. And we're not saying that European education is right for everyone. If you have someone that is perhaps, let's say, from the Middle East, a devout Muslim, I would I would most likely be hesitant to refer them to European countries like Spain, Germany, and Poland. And it's not because, it's going to be, there's a lot of racism, but just because of culturally, it's too different. A lot of the social activities in Europe, revolve around going out for a drink, going to a bar, going to a club, and that's something they might be uncomfortable with. So, we might tell them that, hey, this might not be the best option for you. Of course, you can find your community, but it will be a challenge to do so. And I think that's where the US really comes through as a front runner to having students be in a much more diverse environment. Also because their campus sizes are so large compared to European universities. So those are some ways that we bridge the cultural gap. But we also tell them, it will be uncomfortable, but it is a great opportunity for you to grow as well. If a lot of students are going to be talking about how they're very excited to go abroad and taking on this new challenge. So might as well make it even more challenging than it already is, and come abroad to Europe.
That's amazing. I love how well you put that together. So tell us a little bit what you think a well-rounded counselor is based off of your experience working with students and focusing and kind of preparing them to go to Europe. Most of my listeners are school counselors, college guidance counselors, higher ed professionals. What would you say would be a well-rounded counselor?
Yeah. So I'll use kind of the example of my own high school counselor that we had. She was from the United States. She had done her bachelor's in the United States, and then she had done her master's in Germany. So I think a well-rounded counselor just has to be able to tell the student exactly what she might have heard from other students or from their own experiences. It's very important. I think a lot of times you have counselors that might be, talking about a country where they don't know much about, maybe not on the ground experience or haven't talked to students from that region. And I think, you can't expect a counselor to know about every single country, but it is important for counselors to be perhaps talking to alumni from universities that they're promoting in their high schools. Maybe talking to students that have gone to Europe, having them come in and give a talk to students as well. And, the universities are changing quite fast every year. So, for example, the job market now is quite different to what it was 20 years ago. So I think having students give a realistic approach to, once you graduate, will you able to find a job in that country? Talking to current students about how hard is it to find a job in a country like Spain after you graduate. So I think having that knowledge is essential and something that students would really benefit from. And just being able to really cater to a student's individual's need, maybe even realizing that some students might not even need university. We had a friend in our group that didn't end up going to university because he was really into coding and computer science, and he ended up just pursuing computer science on his own, and he's doing very well for himself now. So I think just having a well-rounded counselor would have a lot of experiences talking to students that have gone to these countries and then be able to promote these countries.
Does Intellect ever offer seminars or trainings or information sessions for counselors? And if so, how would they get in touch with you to learn more?
So we don't offer seminars for counselors yet. What we do is mostly seminars for high schools. So counselors can reach out to us if they would like us to come speak at their high school. What we do is a bit different to traditional high school fairs. We can't really take part in fairs because promoting European universities requires a bit more time. So the way we structure our seminars is we don't promote a specific university. So what we'll do is we'll kind of go through a list of programs one by one, and then talk about universities that might be beneficial for that program. And what that allows us to do is when we're giving a presentation, for example, every single student can be kind of interactive because they know that something's going to come up that they might be interested in. But if you promote a specific university, a student might just simply not be interested in that university. So that's been our kind of approach to seminars. If counselors would like to reach out to us, we are more than happy to have a call with them and kind of talk to them about the experiences of studying abroad and what the process is like.
Especially with Europe can be so case by case. So again, there's so many nuances.
Exactly.
There are so many nuances depending on the institution, the country, maybe the language barriers, the visa requirements. There's so much that can feel very overwhelming as even a seasoned professional, and so we always push that research back on a student because, working in a school, sometimes we have way too many students to work with. And the nuances can be quite tedious to comb through. So your information today has been really invaluable, even for my own learning. So thank you for that.
Of course.
So I have one last question for you. What are some personal lessons you've learned along the way? Because you've been able to live in you're originally from Pakistan, you lived in the Middle East. You lived in Europe, you traveled throughout Europe. So what were some personal lessons you've learned along the way? And how do you use those experiences to inspire and guide students and their families who may face similar experiences or challenges?
So I would say the main two lessons that I've learned is always be willing to try something new, and never be afraid to kind of admit your mistake and change things up. I've always been someone that's wanted to go out of his comfort zone and try something new. That was coming to Spain, and then 2 years into my university career, I decided to transfer universities. And at first I was like, maybe I should just stick it out for 2 more years and just how bad could it be? But I was in a very uncomfortable environment that I wasn't very happy in, and I was happy to make the change. And that's something we tell our students all the time. Maybe you go into your first year of university and the city's not right for you, the university's not right for you, the country's not right for you. Always make the change. So what if your semester has to be extended by your degree has to be extended by a semester or two? At the end you're going to have a lot more fun in those 4 years that you're going to study, rather than suffering and just kind of going through the motions in your 3 years. So that's some of the main lessons that we've learned is, always be willing to accept that you might not have made the best decision, or it just wasn't working out for you, and be willing to change. We help a lot of transfer students that weren't happy in their country. They might have gone there because all their friends were, or their parents always thought of it as the best destination. But, they were willing to make the change, and they're much happier now. So that's just what we tell our students as well.
I love that. We do preach that term best fit. So it sounds like you guys are doing that over there at Intellect. So if people want to get in touch with you, how can they?
So the best way to do it is through our website, www.theintellect.com. We have a contact form that you can reach us out through. If you're looking for counseling for European universities, if you'd like us to come to your high school to give a seminar, we're more than happy to do so. We usually travel around the months from November to February to the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Qatar, and Morocco, but we're always adding countries to the list. So we're always happy to go to new countries as well. So that's the best way to get in contact with us. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Assan Arshad. And yeah, those are the best ways to get in contact with us.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I'm going to leave all of that information below in my show notes. So my listeners, who are a global audience coming from over, I don't even know, like 80 to 90 different countries right now. So if you are somewhere in the world and you're interested in just learning a bit more about Intellect and what they're doing and the initiatives that they're expanding on, please get in touch with Ahsan. And Ahsan, thank you so much for joining me today on the WRC podcast. I really learned a lot from you today, and I'm sure my listeners did as well.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Katrina. I really appreciate it. And hopefully maybe we'll meet down in Dubai in a few months from now.
Absolutely. I would absolutely love that. Thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning in to today's episode. We really hope that you feel a little bit more inspired or curious about learning more about the university application process in Europe, or some of the intricacies or nuances. And I'm sure Ahsan would be more than happy to support any of your questions if you want to get in touch with him. Also, I will leave my details below in the show notes. So in case you want to get in touch with me as well, or leave me a little review on this podcast, I would much greatly appreciate it. So with that said, I hope you all have a wonderful week ahead, and we look forward to catching you guys on the next episode. Did you love the episode? I hope you're feeling inspired and no longer feeling alone out there, and you're ready to evolve and become a better person. Make sure that you share this podcast or take a screenshot and post it on your social media. That's how you help spread this podcast organically, and people can find it much easier when you share, or share it with a loved one. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and make it your mission to be a blessing in someone else's life today.